You're tuning into the Active Mom Podcast with physical therapist, Dr. Carrie Pagliano, a real mom's guide to all things postpartum return to workouts after baby. If you're a postpartum mom, coach, trainer, or physical therapist looking for answers on how to get back to running, CrossFit, yoga, Pilates, HIIT, you name it, without the fear of pelvic floor issues or doing something wrong, this is the podcast for you. Let's start the show. All right, I'm super excited to have our next guest on, Dr. Lashonda Jones. She is an expert in physiotherapy in C-sections and diastasis recti. I can't even say it today. And as a fellow C-section and diastasis mom, I love that A, she puts out really good information, and B, that she just demystifies C-sections and doesn't make it scary. Because let's be honest, that's one of the first things moms say in pregnancy is, I don't want a C-section. And those of us who had them, trust me, you're not going to die. It's all good. So, Lashonda, thank you so much for being on the Active Mom Postpartum Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited we could do this.
I know. And you're yet another one of my Instagram virtual friends that I just can message you whenever, and we've never met. And I still think that that's super weird, but one of these days we'll work it out.
Now we can actually see each other in person. So fun.
Exactly.
We're kind of in person, right? Again.
Right. Exactly. We're spending the afternoon together.
Exactly.
It's all good. It's all good.
Exactly.
All right. So kind of like me, you went to PT school and not even a thought about, well, I'm going to help women someday in pregnancy and postpartum. Wasn't even a thought in your brain. How did you come to kind of working and really specializing in this area?
Yep. So my background is in ortho. And so actually one of my clinicals was in women's health. And I was like, this is really cool. You know, my women's health section was this big in PT school, right?
Oh, I don't remember mine.
Over the summer, a couple of weeks. I don't remember a thing they said. But I think something maybe stuck out to me. I don't know. So I ended up doing an actual clinical in women's health, and I thought it was really cool. But then I ended up in the ortho world, and it almost become like a back end thing that was in the back of my brain. Like, maybe I'll do that one day. So what brought me to it was my children. Yes. Having children and experiencing postpartum firsthand.
Yeah.
That was so eye-opening. In so many different ways, including like the lack of support in postpartum, the lack of education given to all moms, but I say especially to C-section moms who have a major abdominal surgery. So it lit a fire in me that I didn't even, maybe it was like kind of existing way down there.
Yeah.
But, you know, just truly going through that experience was just like, wow. I like, how can you learn these things and not as a PT who your desires to help people,
right?
Start, dabbling into that, researching it, at least start as research, right? Because for me, it was just like researching it, start to tell people on social media, on my social media page, like my own journey, sharing my own journey. And then all these other moms saying, wow, me too. Wait, what is this?
Yes.
And, just starting to ask questions. So that's really how I got into this space.
And C-sections, I think, still, despite our best efforts, still have this stigma. Like, I have so many pregnant clients. Well, I'll ask them, do you have anything that you feel strongly about with your birth plan? And inevitably, one of those things is avoid C-section.
Right.
And my kids are 12 and almost 10. Like, that ship has sailed. I should have moved on, but there's still a tiny piece of me that when somebody says that, to not feel judged, that you could have done something differently, or you could have done that better. Like, this is not a result that is preferred or desirable.
Right.
What kind of thought process, or did you even kind of have any understanding of a C-section before you went through it?
Yeah, I had done no research from a PT standpoint.
Me neither.
And I'm so, now
Big
I'm not
fail.
going to say shame, but I'm just like, really, Shonda, come on now. I wasn't even fully into, pelvic health or postpartum when I had my C-section, right? That
Right.
I feel just threw me in there. I was just like, oh yeah, no. Like I'm full in now at this point. But yeah, I did not do research. I didn't know anything about the anatomy of a C-section. I didn't know what rehab I needed to do. So I was in the same boat as, I'm not going to say the same, right? Because I had some knowledge of anatomy and PT and rehab and things like that, but a very similar boat as moms who go into this unexpectedly and not knowing what to do. So that was good for me because then I could empathize, with moms and sympathize really more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it looks like. And wow, you have to figure this out by yourself. I remember my husband asked me, like, can you go up and down stairs? I was like, I don't know. I have stairs to go up and down. So I assuming so, because I had to think about it. I was like, I don't think anybody said that to me. And you're so delirious after you have children. You don't know. Even if someone tells you something, you're not going to remember it. So yeah, that was very eye-opening to me. So no, I didn't. Nope.
For your first one, like how did you end up kind of in that situation? Like tell us a little bit about that first birth story.
Mm-hmm. So my first birth story was I had a vaginal birth. So that was my son. He's 9 years old. And so I ended up being induced. So I was pretty far along. I think I was like 37 weeks, so full term. But I had started getting preeclampsia. And so that led to an induction. Is that the right word? I'm losing. That doesn't sound right when I said
you're right. You've got mom brain right now.
Yes. So that led to that. And then I ended up having 36-hour, I believe is how long my labor was. And then I pushed for 3.
Okay.
So I ended up tearing. I ended up having an episiotomy. And so I ended up having a pretty long rehabilitation with my son because that was such a long birth. It was a first-time mom, again, pelvic health. Didn't know and do any research even with that. You know what I mean? I'm doing backs and knees and spines and things like that in the ortho world. Right? I'm not even, I'm going to classes and things like that, but not birth classes to that degree. Right. So anyway, so that was kind of my history with that. So that's where my postpartum recovery started with myself, right? Learning how to rehabilitate myself and, everything, pelvic floor, my core, having diastasis recti, again, with them being my first, it was not as bad. It was definitely the second that really, really, really changed the game in the diastasis recti world, or even in rehabilitating my core. So my first, not so bad, but my second, that was definitely the game changer.
And then how did you end up with the C the second time around?
Yep. So the C-section, all the doctors, again, made it to full term. The last physician that I saw, like right before going into labor, was saying, that my daughter was head down. I wanted to make sure this time my son was head down, but he was turned sunny side up. So that made the labor really long. That's why I had to push for so long. And I had an epidural and I pushed that button 1,000 times. So I couldn't feel a thing. Lesson learned, right? And so the second time I was like, I want to have a vaginal birth again, but I wanted to try for unmedicated birth. So that was my desire. But then when I went into labor, I learned that my daughter was breech.
Oh, goodness.
Middle of labor, intense contractions, the whole 9. So she was breech. And so that my doctor was like, Lashonda, you're going to have a C-section. And at that point, I was in so much pain.
Oh my goodness.
Because my uterus is trying to push out baby with feet and bottom.
Right.
Right. And so that's where my unplanned C-section, that's how that happened. So
you're having these massive contractions. What do they have to do to get you to the OR at that point? Because you're in an excruciating amount of pain. They've got to get you anesthetized. They've got to get things settled. Like, what did that process look like?
It was quick. There was like,
was it?
It was like, this is going to go fast.
Okay.
Like, make it as fast as possible.
Wow.
The other part is they couldn't get the IV in my arm. I have like really small veins and stuff like that. So I wasn't getting any type of relief. So anyway, so it went fast. Prayerfully, I did not have to have an emergency C-section. They were able to do just, as unplanned. So I didn't have to have a vertical cut at all. It was horizontal. And so, it was, they gave me the aesthetics and then the doctor, they moved fast. And then before I know it, I heard a crying baby, and I was just grateful, to be honest with you.
Oh, I bet,
Yeah.
especially if you're in the middle of that and you realize we don't really have any other option at
Right,
this point.
correct. Like I just want this to go safely, and I want this,
Right.
I want us to both be alive. To be honest with you, you hear so many scary stories out there,
Yeah.
with C-sections, and so because again, I didn't do my research, I didn't know what to expect. So I'm just like, please do your job and get the baby
Right.
here, and prayerfully, this all goes well.
Yeah. How was your recovery compared to the vaginal?
Because my vaginal birth was a little rough, I would say, because I had the episiotomy. It was just different,
Right.
right? For
Yeah.
some people, it's just like, oh, it's night and day. For me, it was just different. Both of them took time, but
Right.
I was cut a little bit, vaginally for the episiotomy versus
Right.
a long cut on my abdomen. It's different things that I had to just do differently. But both of them took time, and both of them were kind of tough, you know what I mean, in reference to rehabilitating, and being able to reconnect with my core and things like that. But really more so with the C-section, the connecting of the core. It's
Yes.
just like, wow, this is eye opening. The
Yeah.
numbness, the pain. It was just like, wow. I had no
Yeah.
idea, I
No,
didn't
it's
expect.
next level for sure. My oldest, similar to you, I did no research, but I had been doing pelvic health. But I mean, they didn't really tell us like, hey, this is what a C-section is. These are the layers, all that kind of stuff. That was just
Yeah,
not part of the education
yeah,
because the only care that we told people about was a little bit of scar mobility, but it wasn't really anything. We were so delicate with what we told them. Absolutely nothing. You can't go up and down stairs, like,
yeah,
just stuff that's crap, basically.
yeah.
Um,
Right.
3-day induction, finally ended up pushing 2 hours, and,
Mhm.
he wasn't recovering, ended up with a C there, and then my daughter my kids like to be there, apparently they're homebodies.
Yeah,
I at least went into labor with her 2
yeah,
hours before we were supposed to show up for the C-section, and my kids don't drop, and they're like, "Alright, we can't promise you that you're not gonna just labor and we're gonna end up do this whole freaking C-section thing again after you labor," which totally wouldn't recommend, by the way. Like,
mhm. It's a totally different ball game.
yes, it's like you
Oh,
basically do that.
recovery is totally different.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but at least second time around, at least you had the parent thing down. That's what I
Mhm.
always tell people too, like, at
At
least you know
least that
how
part, right?
the first time they're like, "Here, have this baby, go home," and you're like, "What the hell am I supposed to do?"
Yeah, okay. Yep, thanks.
But with the separation, I had I had, like, more noticeable
Mhm.
diastasis after my second
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Um, and I know that there is a little bit more kind of prevalence or like there's more, I think people are more aware of abdominal issues and they want to jump to that diastasis
Mhm.
after a C-section. What have you kind of seen clinically and research wise relating C-sections and diastasis and that sort of thing, if anything?
Yeah, no. When I was working on my guide, that was one major thing that I came across, that C-section moms having a higher rate of
Hmm.
diastasis than vaginal,
Yep.
which is not surprising once you actually learn the anatomy of the
Hmm.
actual C-section and understand that linear alba tissue, it's already thin, but they go in there and they actually pull it apart and they pull your
Yep.
abdominals apart. That doesn't happen in a vaginal birth. And so that makes sense why that area that has been pulled apart and sometimes in size, it has to scar. And so it makes sense why, more C-section moms have more prevalence of the diastasis recti. So that's been my main thing. And then for the women that I work with a ton of C-section moms, but I also work with a ton of vaginal birth moms, right?
Hmm.
And so I kind of even went down when I was going through my C-section research, looking at the women that I've seen, and it was actually kind of equal. And so I think that also goes with the fact that I think a lot of C-section moms don't realize the prevalence of the diastasis recti,
Yep.
right? Because they don't understand what's happened to their body. They see one small incision on the outside, it looks good. If they didn't have any complications, they go
Right.
on with their life, right? And so then they have things like C-section shells. And now that's what I do hear a lot about. Not
Yes.
diastasis recti, it's the C-section shelf. Not realizing a lot of times the diastasis recti is a part of the C-section shelf. So
Right.
that's where I get the opportunity to educate moms in regards to that. And so that's been more of my main focus, is showing how those two things actually end up linking together and
Yep.
you end up needing the same rehab.
Right. I think that's the nice part too. Like I do have a lot of moms. I think they're more tuned into the aesthetics after a C-section, because it can be really funky with scar tissue in the shelf that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first, like if they Google, typically they won't see something about shelf, they'll see something about diastasis. And they're like, okay, well, it must be this, not
Mhm.
realizing that you've got these two pieces there for sure.
For sure.
For moms that you work with, like, how do you start that conversation? Because lots of times they're coming from a place where either the C-section or the abdominal separation, these were things that they were trying to avoid,
Mhm.
or something that was an unintended consequence, or something that maybe that they actively were trying to prevent, not realizing that sometimes you just can't.
Yeah.
How do you start that conversation with them? You knowing exactly what the path is, they
Mm.
have no idea. There's still so much fear, some misunderstanding, not great information. Like, where do you start?
Exactly what you said, addressing the fears and the miseducation. That's
Yeah.
exactly where I started. Just letting them know that, diastasis recti is just a natural part of pregnancy. It's going to, well, the abdominal separation, I always like to distinguish the two.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
abdominal separation is just a natural part of pregnancy. It's something that needs to happen. It's not something you necessarily did wrong. It's just, it's going to happen. You need to make room for
Right.
baby. You're growing organs that are enlarging. All of these things, and so it's natural. And so what we want to focus then on is how to reconnect with your core. And no matter whether you had a C-section or vaginal birth, you need to learn how to connect to your core and your pelvic floor. So just really addressing their fears and their individual concerns, and really just education, education, education. I think the more
Yeah.
they're educated about their body, what's going on, that reduces the fear in itself. Because again, we're not told majority of these things. We're just
Right.
baby and told to go back to your doctor in 6 weeks and just kind of figure this thing out on your own. So
Right.
just the more education, that's what I see. The more I educate moms about their bodies, the more they're just, number one, just so grateful to understand what's going on.
Right.
Then number two, they feel more self-empowered to start their rehabilitation process.
Yes. And are you finding like moms looking for this information sooner? Are you having moms reach out to you in pregnancy even before they're pregnant? Is that something that you're seeing now?
Even before, I don't get a whole lot of even before pregnancies, but when I do, I'm like,
Right?
so happy that you're here. Like, thank you for DMing me or reaching out to
Yes.
me. Like, that is so amazing. I even want to know what made you do that. And I think it's, again, social media, I think, has put a very high awareness, that
Yep.
I didn't have even 5 years ago, right? Because social media
No,
and Instagram
right.
was still puppies and flowers almost,
Yeah.
just,
And food.
it wasn't like, it was not the same Instagram that we have today,
No,
right?
and now it's like people dressing up in vagina costumes and yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
All the things. We've come a long way.
Yes.
So, with that, like you said, social media, well, kind of we alluded to before this
Yeah.
call, but social media can have such a positive
Mhm.
impact, but sometimes it can be really super noisy. So even that you have to kind of get through the weeds of misinformation
Yeah.
that as well. But again, moms coming to me beforehand or coming to me, during pregnancy, I love that. And I am seeing more of that for sure.
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to throw where I live under the bus because I've lived here over 20 years. I get to do that. We're a little type A up here in the DC metro area. We want to know things all the time. That my average patient, and I feel really bad because like my oldest, I think I had him when I was like 34, and then my daughter was like 36. And I was thinking I was super old at that point. That's kind of the average age of my clients. Like if I have a 20 something, typically it's a military mom or they're out of state or something like that. Like
Mm,
we're older,
yep.
like control around here. Again, I laminated my first birth plan, I admit. I've let go since then, but no, I do think that it's kind of like a double-edged sword, though. Like you said, like we really want this information, but I do find that we need to repeat. We can put all that information out there. We can set them up as much as we can,
Yeah.
but you hear things differently depending on the context. I often kind of refer to that portal that you walk through once you have a kid, and I can tell you the same thing, but you're going to hear it in a different way.
Mhm. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. So true.
um, it's because I mean, like you, I mean, I wasn't thinking at all about C-section. Wasn't thinking at all about abdominal separation, but really getting on the other side of that, like it was a harrowing experience. It was awful. The swelling, the pain. I was counting pills. Apparently you have to burp your baby when they fall asleep nursing in the middle of the night. Who knew? And they are going to wake up and scream bloody murder, and you can't negotiate that. Like, it was not pretty. And you can tell somebody that in pregnancy. And I remember people telling me things, and I'm like, oh, well, that won't be me. That's just you, or, that sort of thing. And then you
Right.
walk through that portal, and then you're like,
Oh, wow.
whoa, this is me.
This is exactly what I thought it wasn't going to be. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the myths that you kind of hear the most, kind of first about diastasis, and then also about C-sections? Like, what are the most common ones?
Well, diastasis recti, I know the biggest one for me is that surgery is like the only way that you can improve the diastasis recti. I'm always feel like I'm like busting that myth all the time, right?
Yeah.
So is it a needed option for some? Absolutely. And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think for like, if I just get on social media and I'll just go in a mom group or something like that, you'll see the number one thing being you have to have surgery. Because a lot of times doctors are still, I literally had someone DM me this morning saying, I have this diastasis. I came across your page, but I was also told I had to have surgery. Right. So then I had to go off emailing, saying all these things, and so I would say that's a big one for sure. That you can prevent it. I'm not seeing that actual myth, but I get that question a lot. And that clearly is floating out there, right? Because that's the question is, how do I prevent this? And that maybe just coming from a place of fear. Like, I see that, I don't want that. How do I prevent that? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, like we talked about earlier, it's just a natural part of pregnancy. And so, again, I think those are the biggest ones. And then with C-section is that, I want to have a C-section so that I don't have any pelvic floor issues.
Right.
So that pelvic floor is not
going,
like I can avoid all that prolapse craziness that people talk about, leaking. Like, who wants to deal with that? Everybody, want to preserve their vaginal area. And so they're thinking, if I have a C-section, I don't have to deal with that. And that's not true at all.
No, it is not. So, I will be the first one to tell you that.
Yep. So I think that's a big one. And then I think it's just no information out there about C-section. So I don't even feel like I'm really busting any myths, because there's no myths. Nobody knows anything. You know what I mean? So then it's just more just educating about it all together, I think.
Yeah. I with that too, again, just because there's no information, I don't think moms know what to expect, and they get blindsided. And that was very much my experience. Like, just having a major abdominal surgery. I mean, I had hip surgery, I guess, 16 years ago. So I've been through decent surgery. I couldn't, it was non-weight bearing for a while and that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like, okay, I can handle that. This was next level, because your hormones are insane. You've got fluids coming out of every orifice of your body. You can't roll over comfortably. Like, it's just, the night sweats, all that crap. Like, I don't think there was anything anybody ever said that could have prepared me for that. And then when you tell people fresh and early on, and you're like, yeah, I had a C-section, like, oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, there's this sub conversation I see from time to time. And again, when people talk about their stories, I had a natural birth.
Yeah. I avoid that term at all costs, for sure.
Yeah. Like, that one's, I think, that's a tough one too. And I mean, that could go under the myth pile too, is that, that there's such thing as like a natural or unnatural. Like, birth is freaking hard, period. I don't care where it comes from. It's just hard.
Natural. Right?
Freaking hard.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. I agree.
Yeah. All right, tell me your craziest diastasis story, because I've got a few, but let me hear yours.
So, like, in reference to my patients and things like that.
Yeah, like, what's like, what have your patients been told about their scenario, and what did you kind of help them navigate?
Well, I get a lot of moms who have fairly large diastasis, right? So they're automatically thinking, they're hoping and they're praying, this is going to work. I'm going to see some level of progress. Luckily, most of them, at least that's what they tell me. I just want to see some progress, right? I feel like subconsciously they want their stomach to be completely flat and things of that nature, but they just like, I just want to see some level of progress. And so when I first started working, with moms, so my diastasis is about 3 fingers wide,
Mhm.
right? 2 knuckles deep. So the deep part kind of threw me off. I was like,
Yes.
woo, okay. Is this finger going to stop at any point? I feel like, whoa, we're going
Yeah.
into abyss here and like a hole. I don't know. So that was me, right? And so then I actually started working with moms, and so moms being able to fit like 2 of their hands
Yes.
between their bellies is just like,
Like
wow.
legitimately.
Yeah,
I've had a few of those, and that's extra special.
it's extra special. Absolutely. But what has been, I would say, the greatest joy for me is being able to help some moms in those cases, and they
Mhm.
can be able to improve their diastasis dramatically more than I would have ever thought, because
Right.
mind you, 5 years ago, no planks, no sit-ups, no crunches. You wrap this towel around your body, and you do this little
Yes. What the
thing.
hell was that, by the way?
And
Like,
that's where, I'm sure you do too. That's where I come from in diastasis world, right? That wasn't that long ago. Right.
no,
And
no, and that
so,
w so to clarify, that was you took, like a towel or a band, you wrapped around yourself to pull the 2 sides together, and what
yeah,
I was told was that if you train these 2 things together, that's where they'll learn how to be.
yeah,
I don't know who the hell made that up, but it's all bull, and, like, it's not even remotely close to the truth, and it never actually worked.
yeah,
So I don't know how it kept getting perpetuated,
for quite a long time, from what I
and there were
understand. Yeah,
people that literally you would go travel to work with them for weeks at a time and pay them thousands of dollars to do just that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where we came from. That's
Talk
where we
about the
came from.
demystifying of that as well. Yeah, I almost forgot about that type of stuff. You had to, like, yeah, you don't
You
have to
forget the really
live
crazy stuff that we used to do.
forever to heal your diastasis. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, again, seeing what the concept of progressive overlap, because I'm also a trainer, right? I'm
Mhm.
also became a trainer in 2009. So I've been a trainer for a long time because I loved exercise, right? And so the basic principles of muscle hypertrophy, that was in me. I'm just like, this is a muscle. I don't know a whole lot about this connective tissue. Let me figure that piece out, right? Because I don't have to deal with that in the
Right,
training world, and not so much even in the ortho world for the most part.
right,
For the most part, not in the diastasis part, right? So
right,
I'm like, let me figure that out. I don't know, but I'm like, it's muscle. You gotta load the
right.
muscle. And I'm just like wrapping a towel and lifting your, like, what are we talking about here? This is crazy. So, because I had it myself and I was my own test dummy,
Yeah.
to stuff. And I was just like, no, my diastasis, and I was always, checking it and seeing if it was getting
Mhm.
better. And it was so discouraging when I was just doing all these easy exercises. And then I actually started loading my core, and I was just like, the stuff that everybody said don't do, this is
Right.
actually helped me. That's the crazy part. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I think in the voices I think I have resonated with over the years, it is because we did not go into pelvic health first. We came into it, I was ortho as well, came into that, then this was here, and you're like, well, why can't I mash them up? Why can't I apply these
Yeah.
concepts? And
Absolutely.
again, I think with load, the load conversation in ortho, when did that kind of become cool? Like mid 2015 to 20 or so? I feel like it was coming
Yeah,
in
because
around
when you
that
were just
time
still doing
too.
clamshells and the
Right.
basic 3 sets of 10 and
Yes. And so that's where I was like, it's this like this beautiful like
mhm,
compilation of we're bringing load in, we're doing a mashup that pelvic health's not in this, isolated space and C-sections like over
mhm,
here. And like
mhm.
it just all kind of
The
came into
worlds are
this.
colliding.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then we're having conversations about it and sharing because we were doing similar things, but we had no
Mhm.
idea that we were doing that because there was no collective space to have that
For sure.
conversation.
Right.
And then also around that time too, like when did the Hodges-Lee paper come out? Was that 17 or 18? I c
17?
that sounds
Right,
familiar.
right,
Yeah.
18? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, and you talk about gap and depth, like,
Mhm.
dive into that a little bit, kind of what we were thinking about with gap, and then how we've shifted to look at depth a little bit now. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think, again, the whole concept of the towel, that was whole with the getting the width,
Right.
getting those 2 separated abdominals together. Depth, that's what? I would say, again, within 5 years,
Yes,
for sure.
easily. Mhm.
For sure, that became a new conversation, and that's where I feel like even with the conversation of depth being more important, also came we need to load the core. Like those two
Yes.
things kind of started to become more mainstream, I guess.
Yeah.
It started to be actual topic of conversation in the diastasis recti world, and so
Yep.
yeah, that to me was the big game changer for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and just understanding that you can just put your two rectus abdominals, together by just doing a crunch,
Right.
right? But that tissue that again has been thin, that actually needs to be strengthened in its own individual way. That's what we need to be focusing on,
Right.
because otherwise you're just sitting here. You can't walk around with a towel like this
No.
all the time, right? We gotta do both.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
very
And
important.
for me, I was really lucky when I was working at Georgetown. We had a great physio from Australia, and he brought in ultrasound imaging,
Oh yeah,
which it's been game changing for me because you have
yeah,
so many people talking about TA and pelvic floor and all these things.
yep,
And it literally puts it in black and white and
yeah.
breast strategies, and you don't have to take my word for things. It's on there, and, look and see
You
what
see it.
happens, and let's yeah, which
That's a game
I
changer.
think
Yeah.
it really changed that, and the fact that we're seeing it more clinically and not just in research, again, all this stuff kinda
Mm,
swirled together around the same time.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's yeah.
I don't know about you, like, I have now played mine is at worst maybe 2.5, maybe 2, and
Mhm.
I can kind of play with it like a party trick.
Yeah.
Um, let me explain.
Mhm,
So mine, it's very much like depth, and
mhm,
if I don't if I'm just holding my breath and if I don't use breathing strategies and don't tension my linea alba via my transversus, it's super deep. And then I can also play with pressure and make it cone and dome. And we'll talk about coning in a second.
mhm.
And then I can play with it and make it do whatever I want because I have that coordination and that
Yep,
biofeedback that I've played with.
yep.
Um, can you do party tricks with yours?
No, I can't, and I'm always so jealous because 'cause I'm just like, "Man," everybody's on there showing their coning, and I'm like, "I can't even get mine to cone." I don't know. Because mine is it's pretty tight in there. Like it's
Okay.
yeah, depth wise. I'm actually kind of like, dang, I almost wish I did so I can actually show somebody something.
I
So
know. Well, you can
most
borrow
likely
mine.
use no clients as demos because I'm like, everybody's just like doing all. I'm like, I can't do any of that. Like I'm
I
trying
know.
to make myself cone and I can't. And I don't know if it's subconscious, like I'm just so locked in,
Well,
like to let myself go and
you
okay,
know what
I'm
works. Maybe okay,
right.
so maybe this is your next level coordination is you teach yourself how to cone
Yeah, I've tried. Carrie,
because
I've tried. I'm like, maybe I should have did this a while ago because I'm like, now it's just like I cannot get myself to
oh my gosh,
come.
it is a fun little demo thing. I'll be
Yeah,
honest with you. It's one of those things where I'm like, here, let me show you. I
yeah,
can
yeah.
whip it
I'm,
out.
I'm, I'm always a little. I don't want no Conan. I'm good, and not that Conan's bad, right? Let's put that out there. It's not Conan.
Okay,
He's
so
not terrible. We got to get into that, but
let's talk
I'm okay
about
with
the
that.
rise of the cone. When did the cone get to be bad? Like
Good Lord,
when
I
did
don't
that
know.
happen? I feel like one day all of a sudden like everybody was talking about it and it was bad.
I feel like it's the same time that everything was saying don't do everything for
Yeah.
me. That's my perspective. Again, you may have been in that world a little bit longer than me.
Mhm.
But when I was basically you don't want to do crunches, you don't want to do sit-ups,
Yep.
you don't want to twist, you don't want to
Yeah, the
lift,
twisting
you
is
don't want to do
weird.
anything. I never understood that, but it was
No.
a thing. And it was just like because you want to avoid coning. Like it is the no, you don't want to
Right.
see it, you see it, you're messing, you're tearing up your tummy,
Right.
it's just like this, it was bad, you know what I mean? And I felt like that was all in that same bucket together
Yep.
for me. So yeah, that's when I feel like it was most prevalent.
So what if somebody comes in and their biggest fear is coning, like what do you
Hmm.
explain to them like, "Hey, this is what this is.
Hmm.
This is what we can do or not do."
Yeah. So for me, because I do all things virtual, I tell my patients, like, this is actually a good thing because now
Mhm.
you get some type of visual
Yes.
presentation to tell
Mhm.
you how you're managing pressure, how
Yes.
you're doing with an exercise. So, like, this is not a bad thing.
Right.
Now we just want to learn how to control that, how to minimize that, how to do, what type of movement strategies do we need to do, or breathing strategies do we need to do, so that we're able to control this thing, right? Because you have an existing diastasis and you still have to move. I still want you doing exercises. We still have to load your coach. So you're going to have to learn how to manage this cone. And so we just want to avoid like a hard dome, right? Or hard cone where it's just like rock hard in there, that's what we want to avoid. But if you can go in there and you can just push a little bit, and you can learn how to, activate your TA, and learn how to activate your core muscles so that it just kind of disappears. Like you said, a little party trick there.
Yeah.
Good. Now you're looking in the mirror and you can see, I'm managing this versus having to rely on me or your PT or anybody else. You need to learn these things yourself. So I embrace it. Right.
It's I call it like a little turkey timer.
Yeah.
It's great. It's like, it's just this little indicator light that says, hey, your pressure is not being managed, and you can make a choice whether to do something or not.
Yeah.
The other thing that I never thought I would ever be doing in my career, much less all of this stuff, is talking about physics. And physics comes up so much. Like, I did not enjoy physics in high school or college. I had my high school teacher. I remember we started each day, we all made different noises, and then it was called swamp noises. That's what I remember from physics in high school. Thank you, New York State Public School System. And then that was AP Physics, by the way. I laughed through the whole AP because I just sat there. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was like, okay, this is no good. And then in college, I had a great teacher, and he was just one of those guys like, Carrie, you work really hard. Keep working hard. People are like, PT, you're going to use physics every day. I'm like, no, I'm not. Please don't. No, it's like lever arms. It's lever arms. And that's what I love about coning, is it's a really easy way to integrate that concept that people don't realize that they do. Like, how to adjust a lever arm with a plank. You go plank on your knees.
Yep.
The story I share is when I was a kid, I grew up in a pretty rural area. And so my parents were super creative with my punishment. Love you, Mom and Dad. We'd have to hold 2 encyclopedias out like this. And people don't know what encyclopedias are anymore. So the story faded. And so I'm like, I got to come up with something else to replace the encyclopedias. But it was the 80s. Okay. Funny. So nonetheless, the other was we had to take a piece of wood and walk around the outside of the perimeter of the house and just keep walking with this big chunk of wood. Anyway, point being, the question I ask is, would you rather hold 2 encyclopedias here, or would you rather hold 2 encyclopedias here? So what's the answer?
Brings it home right here.
The answer is neither. You do not want to have to hold the encyclopedias.
Stop getting in trouble altogether, right?
Well, exactly. And I was the good child. So anyway,
answer.
No, but I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, oh, of course. And so when I have those moms that are doing, toes to bar or hanging or things like that, all of a sudden they notice that coning, they're like, well, why is it happening here? I'm like, it's lever arms. It's further away from your body. And so I think people think that they get control over it in these smaller kind of mat movements, and then they go to something much bigger. And they're like, well, right. They're like, where did this come from? I'm like, physics.
Yeah.
Blows your mind.
This actually came in handy. How about that?
Right, exactly. So I'm just going to have to, if you can help me figure out something to replace encyclopedias with, maybe just books.
Jugs of water.
Okay, maybe water should not go away. And
maybe we'll stick with that. Hopefully. Yeah.
So for you, kind of, your kids are a little bit older now. They're 5 and 9.
9.
Yes. Kick ahead the future for moms that are kind of, they're in it, they're learning what's going on with their bodies. They want to know what life looks like ahead. They were very fearful. They thought maybe they couldn't do a lot of things. They're realizing now maybe they can. What does life look like as a mom with 2 super active kids, school age, and you finally get to start doing more now because they're in school some of the time?
Yeah.
What does life look like with diastasis and post C-section?
Yeah. You're saying like if you've healed at that point, or if let's just moms who have older
just
children.
For
or
you,
just for
what is,
myself, for
yeah,
my
for you, what does life look like now for you? So people like they're looking ahead and they want to project ahead and be like, all right, well, what is that going to mean to me?
Yeah. So with my kids being older, right? So I'm not picking up babies anymore, right? I'm not doing that, thank God. But I am so glad that I took the time to do the foundational things and do the hard stuff when my babies were younger, my
Mhm.
kids were younger, because I am still running around with my kids. They're jumping on me and they're heavier. Talk about physics there. Okay. My
Yes.
5-year-old
Yes.
still wants to be picked up. Okay.
My 9, almost 10-year-old, thank God she's skinny, still wants to go piggyback and still
hmm
can for a little
hmm
longer.
hmm And so, just because I'm a physical therapist, I think quite often, actually, I was actually thinking it the other day. I'm so glad, number one, that I lift weights. I lift heavy. I'm
Yes.
not, I still have a 5-year-old who wants to be picked up.
Yep.
And so I don't have to worry about coning and, leaking or prolapse and all of those things because I learned the foundational principles that
Yep.
thankfully for me in my case, I don't have to worry about those things, right?
Right.
Because life still goes on. They get bigger. Those little babies that want to be picked up, they get bigger and they become big babies that want to be picked up, right?
Yep.
And so I'm running to and fro. And the last thing you want to be having to worry about is leaking and all these other things, right? And I know moms are in that position. So if you're in the position where you can actually work on those things now, do it,
Yes.
right? Because it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away if you don't
Right.
do something about it, right? And so you will be 5 years, 9 years, or however many years down the road, and it's something that hopefully that you could have did, even if it's surgery, right? Even if it's some type of surgical procedure that needs to happen in there, so that you can kind of move on with your life. And that's why I tell, even when I was working in the clinic, I'll tell people, they'll say, "Well, I have to do these exercises forever?" And I get that question all the
Right.
time. "Do I
Yeah.
have to do these diastasis exercises forever?"
Right.
You will want to learn how to manage pressure,
Right.
control your core, learn how to connect with your deep core and your pelvic floor for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Now, are you still rehabbing? Hopefully, you don't have to do that, right?
Right.
You're doing that now so that you can live and do these things.
Yes.
You want to get back to life. And that's kind of my down the road. Like now, that gives me like my fuel to help moms that are not here to
Yep.
say, I'm able to do planks, crunches, sit ups. I don't worry about the diastasis. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like that's a thing kind of the past for me, but not because I'm still thinking about properly managing my pressure
Right.
and, preventing hernias and, because those things can still happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna have all these other issues down the road. So again, just, whatever they're doing now, if they're in that space that feels like so, maybe hopeless or maybe it can't get better, like take the time to learn the principles, take the time to do the
Yep.
work so that you don't have to hopefully worry about those things down the
Yeah.
road.
I think that's such a good reminder because remembering what it was like in that space. It's
Mhm.
lonely, you're scared, you're project I used to project everything like 16 years ahead, like, "Oh my gosh, she won't eat vegetables, is never gonna eat vegetables again." Like, which isn't far from the truth, but anyway, point being,
Correct.
um, vegetables aside,
Yeah, yeah.
no, but, like, you think that that is what it's going to be,
Mm,
and I love that you're like, "No, it's not really anything that I think about," and
yeah.
I often wonder with myself, I'm like, if I wasn't in this space,
Mm,
would I even think about it ever?
yeah.
Like how
Yeah.
much would that it occupies our time and our thoughts and things like
Mhm.
that because this is our work, but like
Yeah.
would it occupy us from just a day-to-day perspective?
Right.
I had a client yesterday, and this is another kind of subgroup of women I'm starting to see now that their kids are more our kids' age.
Mhm.
They had the information at the time, so they did go to therapy, they got the
Mhm.
basic stuff, but
Yeah.
that's where it ended.
Mm.
And now it's almost like they're coming late to the game
Yeah.
and they're saying, "Well, is it too late to do something here? I've been rolling to the side and sitting up like an old lady out of bed, and I have a 7 and 11-year-old, like, is that?"
Is this
And
what I have
I
to do the rest of my life? Yeah.
Right,
Right.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and they're seeing all these people do all these other things and don't realize that so much has evolved, and we've been privileged to kind of be a part of that. Like,
Yeah.
I had this client, yesterday, and I was like, "Let me tell you first that you did the best you had with what
Which,
you were
yep.
told."
Yeah.
Since then, a lot has happened.
Mhm.
Let me be Oprah and give you your sit-ups and your crunches and your
Give it all back
planks.
to you.
Give it all back.
Yeah.
And because these people want to be active, they want to go to yoga and do all these,
Yeah.
positions and poses because their kids are in school and they have time now to do all this and be more active.
Yeah.
Is that a population that comes up from time to time with you now?
Yeah, I've had a few moms who are older postpartum, and their needs are definitely different than my brand new mamas. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And their the time that they have to spend to do the exercises are
Yes.
different.
Hmm.
Their lifestyle is different. It's just so many differences. Less hormones that they have to think about, running through their bodies and all those type of things. So yeah, I definitely work with moms on all spectrums in the postpartum
Yep.
spectrum or period, right? And so I definitely see differences with them, and then the approach that I give them, and saying that now you realize that this diastasis didn't go away. Or, you
Right.
know what I mean? Now you're saying that now you understand the concept that you had to do something about it. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
going to linger on into your 50s and 60s. I have aunties who still look like they're pregnant. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're a little bit too old. They ain't going to listen to me. Okay.
Well, yeah.
I'm just little Shonda in their mind. So they're not
You're
really listening.
13.
They're kind of probably peeping in on my social media and saying, yeah, I do kind of look like that.
Right? Oh my gosh.
That ain't coming to me, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
there's still mamas, who are just like realizing like they're just hearing about this diastasis recti thing.
Yes.
It's still a brand new. Now I'm thinking, I feel like I say it so much, is a giant billboard on my
Right.
head that says diastasis recti, but then I realize there's still hundreds and thousands of women who still do not
Right.
know about this condition. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And this particular person, it was really interesting because I think she thought she was doing what she was supposed to.
Mhm.
But now it was like in this juxtaposition of, well, I want to do this, but this is what I was told to do. How do I
Go between
move
those two
this
things.
forward?
Yeah.
Somebody was able to point them in the right direction. But her
Yeah.
findings were really interesting. She
Mm.
had actually, and you'll kind of understand this. Like I typically will see more separation above the belly button
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than below. It's just kind of how it works.
Hmm.
Hers below was probably like a finger and a half. And I was
Yeah.
like, whoa. But it made sense because she hadn't, like, she totally avoided any low ab stuff. So of course we're not going
Hmm.
to target that.
Yeah.
And then the second we just did breath strategies and kind of helped her reconnect, like she was able to tension a lot better. That depth change, like we
Yeah.
basically were like boom to boom.
Hmm.
And it was just literally one session of handing back ownership, agency, getting her caught up in knowledge. I'm like, it doesn't take that much. But she was in a space that she was ready to let go of that.
Hmm.
Which I think that's really important too. And she had somebody, fortunately, a mutual friend of ours that was like, hey, no, this doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to roll out of bed like a old lady your entire life when you don't
Yeah.
see yourself that way. So
Yeah.
I do think that as there's more information out, I think we're going to see more women, sort of our vintage of moms,
Hmm.
that are like, hey, we want in on this action
Yep.
too.
Yep. And that's a big question under almost all my diastasis recti posts. I'm 10 years. I had my baby 15 years
Yeah.
ago, 12 years ago. Is it too late?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I
But
should have put that in the demystifying. That was
yeah.
that's a big one.
You
Yeah.
know what? It goes along with that really nicely though, and what I love that you keep bringing up is load. Is one of the conversations I try and have early and often when moms are done having kids is, hey, next step perimenopause, let's start talking about load and getting you ready to start to integrate that into, what you deem as exercise, because we need to stave
Yes.
off that menopause-induced osteoporosis, all that stuff. Like moms starting to think about lifting heavy and that kind of stuff. I
Just
think
had
it's such
that
a
conversation
yes,
yesterday. Someone's
early and
coming through with
often.
diastasis
Yeah.
recti, and I'm asking about diet. I'm asking about how much she works out. I'm like, how
Yes.
old are you? She's like, I'm pretty much menopausal. We need to get you lifting some weight.
Yes. Yes. And here's the thing too, when you lift heavy, you kind of feel badass.
That's
Um,
right.
really
That's right.
like, I'm just going to put that one out there. And then other stuff feels good too. Like again, my
Yeah.
hip surgery, that's what turned the corner for me after my FAI
Mhm.
surgery,
Yep.
was lifting heavy and doing all that stuff. So again, like, I feel like it's just positioning moms and with better, more up-to-date information to be like, yeah, we can be active a lot longer, which is again why it's so nice that you're like, hey, I don't really think about it anymore because I kind of do what I want. It's not a thing. It's nice to know that that's future.
And that's kind of ultimately the goal. That's what most, moms
Right.
do. Some moms are totally inactive. They don't want to go back to
Mhm.
doing anything that I'm talking
Right.
about. My burpees, honey, I don't need that. I just don't want my stomach to look like this. And then there's some like, no, I want to get back to CrossFit, running,
Yeah,
the whole night. And there's different space, and that's totally okay, right? At the end
exactly.
of the day, you just don't want to have to think about this thing anymore. You don't want
Yes.
to be ruling your life, and you're scared to move this way and scared, the fear thing, I think, is just worse than anything
Yeah.
else.
No, I think so too.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to live rent free in your mind. That's for sure.
Yep.
All right. At the end of every episode, we ask our moms a couple of questions. All right. So,
All right. Hope these are not too crazy.
no, we're good. We're good. I'm not going to ask you any crazy things. All right. Favorite activity since becoming a mom?
Sleeping. Does every mom say that? Oh my God. Sleeping and
Oh
resting and being
my God.
quiet.
I love you. Can I just tell you?
I'm like, activity, honey. I'm trying to do as least active as possible.
I will tell you, I have spent like the last probably year being really conscious about going to bed at a reasonable hour. My kids are old enough now that, and especially summertime, I go to bed like early, like 8:30, 9:00.
I
And
wish I did.
well,
And
you're
how
almost
you do
there.
that? Do you know how I knew you do that? Because you were posting at 6:00 in the morning. I'm
Oh
like,
no, it
like
wasn't 6:00 this morning. It was 5.
5 something. I'm just like, carry me up. I'm
No,
still
but
trying to turn
that's
over 2 more
normal.
times.
But that's because I go to the gym at 5:30 or I go for a run or that sort of thing because everybody's still asleep. You're not worrying about somebody popping up and wanting milk or they've got a nightmare, they want to play or things like that. My kids can wipe their own butts and get their food and that kind of stuff too. So full disclosure there. But no, but like sleep, no joke. My poor daughter last night, she comes running in. She's like, "Don't go to sleep yet. I want to talk to you."
She's like, wait, mom's out of here. What time is it?
And the second I bring up a book too, I'm like 2 pages in and I'm dozing off. She's like, "Don't go to sleep yet."
Let me tell you, you talking about moms looking at the future. Most moms, like myself, who still has a 5-year-old who wants me to put her to bed, is looking like, oh, that sounds glorious. You
It's
have a
coming.
book.
It's
You have an
coming.
actual book.
No, my kids come into that's our evening thing is like the kids come in and they pile in the king size bed and obviously they fight with the dog and that's kind of crazy stuff too. But like I've gotten them so they'll bring in their books and we won't read out loud, but we're all reading.
Yeah.
My daughter and I she read to me, thank God. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which was super cool, by the way, to do that. Like it's coming. I swear to God, it's coming. That probably happened. She was 7 or 8, but she's also
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, she's also a little bit of that, second child overachiever, like kind of yeah. But all right, so there's that. All right, next one. It's coming, I promise. Okay. One piece of advice for new moms.
Oh man, one.
You can have more.
Let's see here. Sheesh, so much. What's the best one? I don't know. I got so many. I'm gonna say don't over stress. You know what I mean? I think so much is coming at you, and I know that's gonna be hard. Almost like you're kind of probably talking to the air, but don't over stress about preventing this. Am I doing this right? From just mothering standpoint, from your health standpoint, and know that there is a village of other people that you probably haven't been educated about, like us, PTs, lactation consultants, doulas. There's so many people out there that can help you that you don't have to take it kind of all on yourself and figure out yourself. And as we were talking about earlier, being new moms, we didn't know any of this stuff. No. Now we do, but we didn't then. And so, if we're getting new moms on, this podcast or getting out there in social media, like telling them, hey, there's a whole village of people that can help you and you don't have to do it yourself. And, even if you're doing it wrong, you know what I mean? it's probably going to be okay. And you're probably going to live. And,
Right.
you had a C-section, you're going to live, you know what I mean? It's that type of thing.
Yeah.
You learn that from experience, but that would probably be my advice.
That's a good one, though. That's a good one. I think that's one of those that, like, in the beginning, it probably be like, oh, no, 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 I have to stress. But, like, I think later on, the more you kind of have been in this,
Yeah.
it holds true.
Yeah. But I wish
Yeah.
more people told me that. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
why, and the why you don't need to, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I think you're right. All right.
Mhm.
In our space, who's got your attention right now? Like, who's somebody in our space? They can be PT, they can be something else.
Mhm.
Like, who should we be paying attention to right now?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Mm.
Pregnancy, postpartum space. Oh, man. Me?
Who,
I'm just joking.
well,
I'm
that's
just
why
joking.
you're here.
I'm like, I feel like there's so, like you said, it's so
Who
many.
catches you on the scroll? Like, who do you
Like, I
like to see what they're up
always
to?
like want to see what they're talking about. Oh man. See, Carrie, you caught me off guard.
Sorry.
Um, I'm really trying to think of somebody that's just real. I don't know. I now have to think
Yeah.
about that. I feel like I don't know. I'm probably trying to not scroll so much. You know what I mean?
Well, you took the full
Okay,
disclosure. You
I can
finished
think of
your
one who thinks I think she's doing a really great job of really breaking things down for
yeah.
moms. And her name's Betsy. What is her name? Mama Made Strong, something like
Okay.
that. She
All
probably
right.
wouldn't even know that I probably was going to say that, but I
All
do
right. We'll
adore.
have to check her out. Let me see
Yeah, I
here if
do
that's
adore her page.
legit.
She's sharing a lot of great information, and she does a
Cool.
great job of breaking it down for moms to understand, like complex things. And she's just one of those really good teachers. And I asked her, I was like, are you going to teach PTs too? She's like, no, I just kind of just teach moms. But I think, if you feel like there's so like a massive amount of information on pelvic floor and core,
Yep.
I feel like she does a really good job of breaking it down. So shout out to
And
her.
and
Hopefully I
that
got her
is her.
name
You
right.
got it right.
Did you
Let me
did
see if I
I?
go here. Yep, you did.
Mama makes one. Very
Good
good.
job.
Good
Nicely
job,
done.
Shonda.
And I am following her, so I will have to you know how the algorithm goes. Like, people disappear off and
They
then they come
do.
back on again. So,
They
yeah.
do.
Okay.
She stays in my feed, and we always comment on each other and show love. So shout out to her.
Love that. All right, last one. What does it mean to you to be an active mom in postpartum?
Yeah. Just for me, the freedom to just be able to exercise, not just for aesthetics, but just being able to be active and have me time. And sometimes I go to the gym, sometimes I go for a walk.
Yep.
It's feeling good in my nutrition, making sure I'm getting hydrated. Now that I'm a little bit older, I'm thinking about like all those type of things, but just being active and not, like we were saying earlier, not being held back or in shackles. I hate to use the word shackles because it's not shackles, but it feels like it,
Yeah.
postpartum issues, right?
Yep.
So for me, it's just being able to, be active, whatever that looks like for
Right.
you. Whether that's, I just want to get out and walk and not
Yeah.
have to worry about XYZ. I want to go to the gym and not worry about XYZ. Like for
Yeah.
me, it's just being able to do that and the freedom to do that. And then having a love for it, versus a negative relationship, just being active,
I like that.
whatever that looks like for you. So
I like it. Clear the cobwebs out. We don't need to drag that trash along with us. We just want to do what we want to do.
just be
I
able to
like that.
move. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. All right, my dear, you have been gracious and you are giving our listeners 40% off the cesarean recovery and safe return to exercise guide. Thank you so much. Your user
So
code is
welcome.
Active Mom Podcast. Love it. If you want to find out more about Lashonda's programs and all her offerings and her stories and stuff that she shares, you can find her on Instagram. And I always want to call you PT Trainer Shonda, but it's not. It is P Trainer
Right.
Shonda.
So this is the thing. It is PT Trainer Shonda. So this is me being, I did that name years ago.
It's a play on
The
it.
P is supposed to be double used because I'm a PT
Yes.
and like personal trainer. I mean, well, PT as in physical therapist and then trainer, but it is
Yes.
simply P Trainer. So I tell everybody PT trainer, and then some people look at it as like, it's actually PT.
No, I have to double check it because in my head when I read it,
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
know.
when you read and you add an extra letter that's not there, that's what I'm doing, but it's not. So
Yeah, you're right. And it is PT trainer, right? But I make the T double. But that's when you look back at it later, you're just like, I guess that is confusing
it's
for people.
PT
It makes sense to
Rainer.
me in my head at the time. And then I go back, I'm like, should I change that? I'm like, heck, everybody
No,
like this.
no, it's
So
like,
now I just have to explain it and keep it
now we
in.
have a story. Now we have a
We got
story,
a
and I will not
story.
ever forget it when I
That
go to
is so
search you to
funny.
DM you.
Right? The big T, no, okay. Anyway.
But okay, so you know what's funny though is always in my head though. When I think of you, I don't think Lashonda. I think PT trainer Shonda.
That is so funny. Me too. And then I introduce myself like that. It's so funny. People like, what's her name? Oh, Shonda. She put it in there. Okay. And then they'll say,
Right?
is it LaShonda or just
Right?
Shonda? I'm like, it's the same person. Just
Right?
bring it
Yeah.
down.
We know who you are.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being
Thank
on the
you,
show and
Carrie.
sharing all your good
I'm so
stuff.
glad we could do
I
this.
know. We'll do this in person and in real life and all that good stuff one day. And you will get a nap and a nice long sleep.
Thank you for speaking that into existence. I really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to that.
I will keep
Sitting in
speaking
a
it
bed
into
quietly.
existence.
I'll take it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Carrie.
Did you enjoy the podcast? If so, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and tell a friend to do the same. Are you a postpartum mom or postpartum pro wanting to know more about getting back to running after baby? Check out all my free goodies on carriepagliano.com. This podcast represents the opinions of Dr. Carrie Pagliano and her guests to the show. The content should not be taken as medical advice and is for entertainment purposes only. Always consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.